Now, I see Kamala Harris's visit down under is making news in America, finally. She appeared at a real estate conference, Josh. She was there alongside reality TV stars, so that's the sort of level we're talking about. And she had all sorts of keen insights.
You have the ability to understand the context in which you live, the context in which others live. You're more likely to then connect with them and understand what's important to them. But if you are in an interaction where you don't have that level of awareness, they will be aware of that. I mean, this is the thing that I've also known about life, and I'm sure everyone here understands.
She even did some of her finest work about being unburdened by what has been. And there was this Playboy magazine anecdote.
You look at, we're in the store or whatever, you look at the cover of Playboy magazine. Let me just tell you, the reason that people are looking at these things, understand why they were developed, for the perpetuation of the human species.
Josh, that could have been your president.
Yeah, the laugh is just so unbearable, is it not? I mean, they called her the cackler in chief for a reason there. I mean, that laugh just makes you just want to curl up into a fetal position and pretend like you never heard that for the rest of your entire life there. I mean, look, on the one hand, I'm inclined to say that that was a word salad. The problem with calling it a word salad is that every so often a salad can actually be quite tasty and nutritious. There was absolutely nothing tasty and nutritious about what we just heard there. I mean, this is a woman who is just profoundly untalented. The number one thing, Rita, that I have never has never ceased to amaze me about Kamala Harris every time that I've seen her, and I followed her career for a very long time. She was a very prominent DA, prominent not because of her legal prowess, I might say, prominent only because of the disproportionate media attention that was shown her way. She was a prominent DA out in San Francisco. She was California Attorney General, Senator from California, Vice President. I followed her career for a long time. The thing that never ceases to amaze me is just how profoundly untalented this woman is. At some point, someone in the DNC brass saw someone who checked a few intersectional identity politics boxes, and they said, my God, we found the next talent, and we are going to promote the living crap out of her and just promote her and give her every opportunity. And sure enough, they succeeded until they didn't, until she got slapped in every single swing state by Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential election. But this woman just is not talented. She is not skilled. And frankly, it really kind of baffles me why she hasn't just retreated and gone in some Tony, 7 or 8 figure position in some consulting gig in the Fortune 500. I'm sure there are a lot of corporations that would pay her a lot of money to do these word salad sandwiches, whatever we're calling it there. But why she's trying to bother the folks down under about it, I have no idea, frankly.
Well, she almost failed her way up to the Oval Office. She was almost president. So that in itself is astonishing. Someone who has really not done particularly well in any of those prominent roles she's been in, and yet kept getting pushed because she ticks so many of those boxes. Now, we've got to talk about the Southern Poverty Law Centre. This body has just been a disgrace in recent years. They've added the wildly successful Turning Point USA to their list of what they call a hate map, which supposedly exposes the groups upholding white supremacy in the United States. Josh, these lunatics genuinely are comparing this grassroots youth organisation, the largest in the US, a wholesome organisation, to the KKK, to the Ku Klux Klan. It seems astonishing. And the Southern Poverty Law Centre has had to pay out quite significant sums in defamation in recent years, and yet they keep doing things like this. What is behind this movement now? It used to once be a honourable movement, but they really have gone wayward in the last decade at least.
Rita, I can actually one-up this, believe it or not. So I've personally been a victim of the Southern Poverty Law Center. In fact, it was about 2.5 years ago, in November 2022, the Southern Poverty Law Center put out a roughly 5,000 to 6,000 word hit piece against me individually. I kid you not, this was a very lengthy essay on their website there. This is back when I was the opinion editor of Newsweek. I was running the publication's op-ed section. They accused me in no uncertain terms of acting to turn the Newsweek op-ed section into a fascist, Nazi-esque or Nazi-adjacent opinion page there, whether or not they were aware that I am Jewish and I keep a rock from Auschwitz on my desk every single day to remind me of the Holocaust. I'm not entirely sure that they actually thought this one through. But yeah, I mean, they've paid up a lot of money in defamation lawsuits over the years for things exactly like that. I mean, this organization, to put it mildly, they have lost their way. But you're right. I mean, the NAACP, the Southern Poverty Law Center, once upon a time, back in the era of Martin Luther King Jr., the 1950s, 1960s, Rosa Parks, the Montgomery, Alabama bus rides and everything there. The SPLC was fighting on the correct side of history, as our progressive friends would like to say. The problem is that, like so many once liberal institutions, they drank the woke identitarian identity politics, neo-Marxist Kool-Aid with every ounce of their being, and they have turned into the very monsters that once upon a time, very long ago, they opposed. I'm not surprised in the slightest that they are accusing Turning Point USA, which is run by my friend Charlie Kirk. I'm not even remotely surprised that they're putting Turning Point in their crosshairs. Turning Point USA, under Charlie's leadership, has been an extraordinarily successful organization, one of the most consistently successful organizations on the entire American right. So they're trying to just put some chink in the armor, so to speak, of this venerable organization that raises a lot of money, an organization that turns out youth support. It's probably one of the number one reasons, by the way, that Donald Trump picked up massive ground with 18 to 24 voters is Turning Point USA. So they're trying to kind of take them down a notch there in the political service of the folks who actually butter their bread, the Democratic Party there. It's not going to work. If anything, frankly, Rita, I actually anticipate that Turning Point USA will probably be able to raise a lot more money off of the fact that the Southern Poverty Law Center has ludicrously deemed them a so-called hate group.
Well, yeah, the Southern Poverty Law Centre has lost all credibility. I mean, your example, I wasn't even aware of that, calling a proud Jewish man a Nazi. I mean, that just shows you how completely demented they have become. Yeah, they deserve absolutely no credibility whatsoever. And it's sad because once upon a time they did do good work. Now, you coined the term judicial insurrection to describe the manner in which Democrat-appointed activist judges are trying to usurp the authority of the president, the will of the American people. And there's been another example of that, Josh, since we last spoke. The federal judge has blocked the Trump administration's dismantling of the Department of Education. Now, before you tell me more about this, this is a policy that did not start with Trump. This plan to get rid of a department that is really an impediment to education outcomes of American children, it started with this man.
I would like to dissolve the $10 billion National Department of Education created by President Carter and turn schools back to the local school districts.
Okay.
Josh, Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. Can Trump pull this off?
Well, what Reagan said is right. This is a creature of the Jimmy Carter era. President Carter signs the relevant statute from Congress into law in the late 1970s, and every single Republican president since Ronald Reagan has vowed to shut down the Department of Education. Now, two things can be true at once, Rita. It probably technically does take an act of Congress to formally abolish the Education Department, the same way that it took an act of Congress to promulgate it in the first instance. However, on the other hand, the president does have the ability to effectively all but eliminate it via sheer force of attrition, because he is the executive. He controls the executive branch, and he can sign executive orders that effectively result in the layoffs or the firing or the early terminations, whatever you want to call it, of the overwhelming majority of the education department bureaucracy there. So yes, it would probably take a literal act of Congress to actually tear down that sign, for the federal government to sell the building to some private developer, whatever there, but he can do it on his own. However, this obstinate federal judge, who is very much part of the judicial insurrection, who was trying to stop him there, is just wildly overstepping his bounds, like so many judges, Rita. This is the number one thing. This is literally the number one thing that the Trump administration is going to have to get comfortable taking on. They're doing a great job when it comes to so many issues there. They've been bold and aggressive when it comes to tariff policy, when it comes to all sorts of different foreign policy. They are taking on these black robe tyrants in the least dangerous branch in Article 3, the judicial branch there. That is the name of the game right now. They really are going to have to, I think, to grow a pair here. It's easier said than done. I don't have all the solutions there, but this is the big threat right now to Donald Trump's agenda more than anything else. It is the judicial insurrection.
Well said, Josh Hammer. Thank you so much for your time tonight.